the book doesn't start with a fluffy scene as
Mhm.
a romance would expect.
Yeah.
It starts with brutal battlefield experience in the Second World War, because this scene made Nicholas to the person whom he is, and the loss of his entire unit, and that he thinks he's responsible for that, frames his worldview through the whole book. So he suffered a kind of trauma, and then and now he tries to live with that, and he needs to find his self-confidence again, that he sees that he is capable of leading others, and that he's capable of doing the things he's doing. But at the beginning, he can't see it. So I think the interesting thing is how he develops through the story, and how he tries to overcome the lie that the first scene, the battle experience, installed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creativity Worth Expressing, a podcast all about creativity. Today's creative guest is Tina Hagmann, coming all the way from Austria, who's going to be sharing with us a bit about her book. And the title of her book is When Atlantis Calls. And she's also going to be sharing with us a bit about her journey into writing and all that fun stuff. So I hope you really enjoyed this interview with Tina. And if you enjoyed this podcast and want to support this podcast, please feel free to like, to subscribe, to follow, to share. And if you would like to help it further grow, you can always go to my link, buymeacoffee.com/truththatage7. Now, without any more further ado, here is my interview with Tina Hagmann as we discuss her writing career, her journey, and her book, When Atlantis Calls. Enjoy. Today I have a guest who's coming all the way from Austria, and that is I'm here with Tina Hagmann. And just a little note to the audience, especially the English speakers, Tina is not a native English speaker, but she's going to be trying her best with her English. So anyways, welcome to Creativity Worth Expressing. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for hosting me, and welcome from Austria too. It's a
Well,
long distance between
it,
us.
it's long distance, but we're going to be talking all about creativity and all about your book. Can you share what is the title of your book in the Austrian language and in the English language, the title?
Oh, the title. Yeah. I mean, the English title is When Atlantis Calls. And it was unfortunately not really able to translate the whole title into German, back into German, because it didn't work in German. In my language, I chose Tribut und Widerstand. That's kind of tribute and resistance. That's the word by word translation. But we decided to go in the English speaking countries with When Atlantis Calls, and in the German speaking countries with Tribut und Widerstand. So I published the book in both languages at the same time. So yeah, it was quite a task to do that.
Okay, and the genre of this book is?
It's a historical action romance. So it's set in War II, so 1940, 1941. And yeah, and that's describing the book. It's historical, it's kind of action treasure hunt, and it's a huge romance too. So I have all those things in my novel.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions that I have lined up. Are you ready?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so my first question is, um, what sparked your passion for writing?
That's actually a hard question, because I'm not a typical writer. So many writers say, "Oh, I wrote since I was 4 years old about bunnies," and I was never that person. Um, I tried a few fanfics in when I was 14 or 15, and it was for TV shows like, okay, I confess, Miami Vice, Top Gun,
Yeah.
all the stuff from my youth. But I soon realized that the movie playing in my mind, it was so hard to bring that down in the written word. So I actually didn't write for, yeah, for many, many years. And sometimes in between I tried, but again, it was hard for me to get all the pictures in my mind on, you know, down on paper. So I actually started writing just a few years ago. And it was, yeah, part of the COVID lockdown. I was bored, so I had time. Yeah, and then I started. But what accompanied me all the time were stories. Stories all the time in my mind. Whenever I rode my horse or when I walked through the forest, I had stories in my mind. And I never just rode my horse. I was like, a musketeer or Robin Hood or stuff like that. So it was always there, this fantasy. And so and in the last 3 years, yeah, I was able to write, and I was taught how to write. And so I developed the skills. And yeah, and now after 3 years, I was able to publish the book in 2 languages. And
Awesome.
I'm,
Yes. Well, my next question is, how did your writing style develop into writing historical romance fiction?
no, actually, that just happened. I never wanted to write a historical fiction. I wanted to write fantasy all my life. I mean, huge fantasy fan, and yeah, every movie dealing with magic and dragons and horses. I love horses. That was my thing. But actually, this historical book just happened because I watched 2 TV shows back then. It was one TV show where indeed the BBC Musketeers, and then I watched the TV show called The Man in the High Castle. That's a TV show about how that the German won the war, and actually all over the world were the Nazi regime. And so this was just a fictional idea, of course. And the moment I thought, where would the Musketeers have been when they would have been in the Second World War? And suddenly I had this idea of Paris, France. The Musketeers are the bodyguards of a king, so of course they are in the resistance. And suddenly I had the first idea of writing this novel, and so it just happened. And yeah.
Awesome. And are there any authors or books that have influenced your writing style?
Um, Influenced, yes. Of course, there was Terry Goodkind. I think that's how you pronounce it, Goodkind, and his Sword of Truth fantasy, because he narrated the whole story from this close third POV, and that's what I felt familiar with. So I was really loved that kind of storytelling, and how he went into the depths of a character and the development of a character. And on the other side, it was Diana Gabaldon with Outlander, because that's a typical classic historical romance. And and this was such a great love story. And yeah, that's the way I was influenced. But soon I realized I wanted to do fast paced. So not so focus on world building and describing every detail. And I'm actually more or less focused on this action, the story. It needs to move on. So I think I'm that's something not really typical in that genre. Historical romances are sometimes really purple prose and fluffy. So I decided to do that. I mean, I could easily have expanded the whole novel into 1,000 pages. So that would have, yeah, but I decided to not to. So just let the story speak for itself. And
Okay. And
mm,
are there any important characters or important scenes in your book that you would like to share with us today?
yeah, I mean, the main character, of course, Nicholas, he's the main character of the whole novel. As I said, that's the way Terry Goodkind wrote his whole series, this close third POV. So I'm diving deep into the character of Nicholas, and he's quite interesting because I mean, the book doesn't start with a fluffy scene as
Mhm.
a romance would expect.
Yeah.
It starts with brutal battlefield experience in the Second World War, because this scene made Nicholas to the person whom he is, and the loss of his entire unit, and that he thinks he's responsible for that, frames his worldview through the whole book. So he suffered a kind of trauma, and then and now he tries to live with that, and he needs to find his self-confidence again, that he sees that he is capable of leading others, and that he's capable of doing the things he's doing, but at the beginning he can't see it. So I think the interesting thing is how he develops through the story, and how he tries to overcome the lie that the first scene, the battle experience, installed. And so actually, and that makes him a multiple layer character. So and of course he has this wonderful woman. He meets Isabel, and he's totally flashed by her, but she, in his perspective, she's not reachable for him. He can't get her because she is confident and strong, and he doesn't think that he can do that. So that's the interesting romance aspect. And of course, the treasure hunt. So he stumbles over a mysterious treasure, the treasure of Atlantis. That's why the title is chosen, When Atlantis Calls. And of course, the Gestapo, the Nazis, want to have that treasure too, and it's war changing. So everything is at stake, and it needs to be done soon, because the Nazis want to have that really desperately. So we have this ticking bomb in his mind. So he needs to get to that treasure. And so I think that's more or less the most important things to know about my story.
And what are some challenges that you faced while writing this story?
Challenges were to get the time right. Which kind of telephone did they use?
Mm.
Did they have, which kind of tech did they have? Because of course, I wanted to have them use technology, but I had to make research which of those technologies were available back then, and how did
Yeah.
they look like, and how did people, I don't know, do this and that, and um, how all those things developed. So that was quite interesting. I mean, I made a really huge research on how to drive a steam lock. And
Oh,
so I actually really knew or know now how to get the steam lock into running, but this scene was deleted at the end. So it
okay.
was
But yeah, it's important to do your research on the technology from the time, because it would be
Mhm.
funny if you put, he was emailing Isabel, or it wouldn't. I mean, that's a different time,
Of
So
course,
yes,
that's
now
but I
now
always had to
yeah,
think about how would they get in contact, where is the next telephone. So all those things, because and how was the weapons developed, because he's a sharpshooter, which weapon did he use, and how did that work. So I needed to go deep into this military things too. And so that was quite interesting, yes. And of course the natural historical background. I mean, I had to do the research because of course it's fiction, it's complete fiction, but the of course the world building needed to be true. So I of course had to make research. When was the resistance founded, who did that, when, so that all the dates were correct in the novel. Yeah, so that was quite, took a long while to get that.
Now, when you sit down to write, do you have a writing process, maybe some rituals that you do?
I don't even have an office, so I'm sitting here on the actually on our dinner table, and that's my office. Behind me, the kitchen, and usually, normally, the kids are around here, and so I'm working in the hustle and bustle of kids and dog and the pure life, you know. So actually, the only thing I'm really doing is to signal that I don't want to be disturbed is when I put on my headphones and listen to music, because this is loud enough so that I can concentrate on writing. So yeah.
What kind of music do you listen to while
Yeah,
writing?
epic fantasy, cinematic movie
Mm,
style, Two Steps from Hell, stuff like that. So to get in the right mood for great action and adventure. And of course, when I'm writing the romance scenes, I went to the Outlander soundtrack because
okay.
there's always.
And can you share your journey on becoming a published author?
um, that was really interesting too, because I had the help of two already published authors. First of my mentor, she's currently writing on her third book of her science fiction series, Kay Pimpinella, and she published before me, and she of course guided me through all those steps. And she said, yeah, you would need developmental editing. Of course, yeah, I had to rewrite the whole draft again after I got it back from my developmental editor, who is in Texas too. So that was quite interesting. And yeah, so she helped me with that kind of stuff. And I had the help of Christopher Hopper. He's an international best-selling author in science fiction. So he wrote 33 books, or published 33 books. So he's quite experienced. And he helped me with, for example, the cover design and stuff like that. So he said, yeah, my husband created the cover. So that was done by ourselves because he's an IT pro, but he helped me to set the cover with, with letters and which font I should use and all that. So I think the most important thing is ask for help and try to find help. Don't do everything on your own, because as a debut author, that's impossible to get through all those tiny little things you need to know. And actually just formatting took us, I think, 3 weeks till we found out how we can really set that so that the book looks nice and I have pictures in it. And yeah, was quite interesting to learn that too. So yeah, I recommend get help from people who know what they're doing.
And did you ever experience writer's block during the process of writing your book?
Actually, not. I had times when I was not able to write because life was busy. And even if I was too tired, or that I had I don't want to write right now, I never let that happen. It was actually a mindset. There is no writer's block, even if I just sit down and edit a few sentences. And usually while editing, I got back the spirit to write. So yeah, I think writer's block, you can overcome writer's block by just sitting down and deal with your story. Make research. I don't know, go for or search interesting pictures you can use or stuff like that. So I
Okay,
think just be busy. Just be
just keep
busy and
busy.
write or do something with, yeah, with your writing.
And what's next for you in terms of your writing career?
Yeah, and next is that I'm doing the book, the trilogy I really wanted to do from the beginning, my fantasy. So I'm going back to fantasy, or back, I'm going to fantasy, and yeah, try um, to finish my trilogy. I already have set all three books, so I know what's happening. I just need to start. So
Okay.
that's my
So there's no release date yet for your fantasy
No, 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 of
trilogy.
course not. No, no, no. Right
Yeah.
now, I'm actually too excited that I just published this one book, and now I want to, yeah, to see my baby out there, that it's read by people, and of course, I hope that people enjoy the story as much as I enjoyed it to write it. So that would be just awesome and cool. And the moment I can, yeah, I can step back a little bit more, getting distance to this book, then I think I will start with my fantasy novel. But
Oh,
I think in the next 1 or 2 months I will start.
okay. And do you ever see yourself going back to writing historical fiction, romance?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Some asked for a second book, and I was like, not sure if those, yeah, if Nicholas and Isabel, if there is another story. Yeah, but I got a few ideas, so maybe I will go back. Yeah, could be.
Okay. Okay, now I'm ready to start a bonus questions. Are you ready?
Okay, yeah, of
Okay, so
course.
my first question is, if you could attend any historical event, which one would it be?
Any historical event, which one could it be? Um, Maybe when Immanuel Kant published his famous book, his
On
philosophical book.
metaphysics or something, or what was it? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's don't have the English translation now. It's Kritik der reinen Vernunft, critics of pure reason, I think. Yeah, is
Okay.
the English version. Yeah, but actually just see him walking there with this so important book, because this is the starting, or yeah, this was the start of enlightenment, that our society developed into what it's now, because we yeah, we in Europe, so many things developed, and I think that would be pretty cool. So
Okay,
that would be my, it's just a tiny moment, but I think
that's
it's
very
important.
interesting.
Mm.
My next question is, what is your favorite historical period to write about?
Middle age.
Middle age.
Medieval, middle age, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because we have so many castles around here, and I love to see yeah, how people lived back then, and this was so exciting. And I think that's the reason why I love to write fantasy, because I can combine that, those
Okay.
two areas with magic and the historical side of middle age. So probably that. But the Roman Empire would be cool too,
Oh
because they
yeah.
were quite developed. And yeah, I mean, in 5 hours, I'm in Italy. So, and there,
Yeah.
like, I can see all those historical places, and that's absolutely interesting.
And my next question is, who is your favorite historical figure?
Oh, my favorite. Actually, out of the gut, I would say Robin Hood, but he's not historical. um, who's my favorite historical figure? Maybe Galileo Galilei,
Okay.
because yeah, because he actually was someone who tried to change the view to our world, or on our world,
Yes.
and his life was quite interesting.
Yes, sure was.
Mm.
My next question is, since you wrote a historical romance fiction, what is the most romantic place you have ever visited?
The most romantic. place. I think Italy, the beaches of Italy. They are so beautiful, and yeah, you see the Mediterranean Sea, and that's so beautiful area. So I think, yeah, sitting there watching the sunset, that's just cool.
Okay. If you could have coffee or just sit down with any author, dead or alive, or maybe even any historical figure, dead or alive, who would it be?
Mm, having maybe Dan Brown. He's
Okay.
actually, yeah, because I really like how he develops the riddles and the mysteries in his novels. And so to chat with him about how he gets his ideas and how he develops the story based on the treasure hunt or whatever they are hunting. So that would be quite cool to get insight
And,
of a writer like him. Hmm.
and what are you currently reading?
Currently reading, I'm reading a novel in German. It's actually a, yeah, kind of a woman who's reflecting her relationship to horses and the way she developed as person and as a writer. Yeah, and how important horses were in her life. So that's kind of biography.
Okay. And I know you love fantasy. Also,
Hmm.
you just wrote your book, Historical Romance. Um, which genre would you say you love more?
Definitely fantasy. Yeah, if I have to choose, but you can combine both, right?
Yeah, you can combine. So my next question is, what is your favorite fantasy book or movie of all time?
Yeah, a movie, of course, Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. These were really epic. And in terms of books, yeah, I have to confess, I really like Terry Goodkind. I mean, I know that he's a little bit problematic. I didn't realize that over here. So in Europe, we had actually no idea about that. He's so that the real fantasy fans say, no, he's not really good. But it was the first fantasy I read. And I think that's always the first one is always the special one, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, so the classics and Terry Goodkind.
Okay, now are you ready for the concluding questions?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, this is be very simple. Are there any upcoming authors that you would like to suggest we watch for or that we read?
Of course, Krista Pimpinella, Kay Pimpinella, with her sci-fi trilogy. She's actually about finishing it now, and it's awesome time travel fan fiction, time travel fiction, and that's so cool because it's fast-paced and she combined both, sci-fi
Mhm.
uh, world with history because she always travels back into history and visits all those crazy, yeah, places, and so that's pretty cool and awesome, and she's a really amazing writer. And yeah, and of course Christopher Hopper with his absolutely incredible books he wrote, and he's, yeah, he just works, I think, on adaptives too. So yeah, because I really like their books, and I think they're readable in every situation.
Okay, and my last question is, um, why is creativity worth expressing for you?
Because I can go to places I can't do physically. I can go to every place I want to in my mind, and to share with others. That's just deep passion, you know. to share my dreams, my stories, and yeah, and kindle maybe a spark in other people to experience those worlds too, and yeah, to join me while I'm in so many different stories and fantasy worlds and fiction worlds. And so I think that's the most important thing in expressing creativity, to what I like to share that with others, and that other people can have a good time too. It's pure escapism for me in this way. And yeah, we sometimes we just need beautiful things in our life because life is stressful enough. And yeah,
Thank,
that's the reason.
thank you so much, Tina. And this is a bonus. If you would like to read.
I mean, I can try it in English. I
Okay.
maybe just the very beginning, because that's not a typical start for a romance book. And
Okay.
yeah, so I try to read the first few lines of my chapter 1. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Uh, so, um, Battle of Sedan, Ston, France, May 17th, 1940. The beauty of war. Black smoke against white clouds. Thunder of cannons piercing his eardrums and vibrating deep in his chest as if shaken by an invisible hand. Tracer rounds painting bizarre patterns in the sky, unable to distract from the stench of blood and putrefaction. The gospel of madness embraced his soul like a revelation, tremendous and yet fascinating, beautiful. Nicolas Marius Durand, lieutenant of the 51st French Infantry Regiment, ran a hand down his sweat-soaked face, banishing the absurdity of his thoughts. After fighting for 3 days, he hadn't slept, barely eaten. The whiz of German artillery flew overhead, but it wasn't meant for him, not this time. A shell hit his mark and shook the ground. He covered his head and held his breath as debris pelted from above like tiny insect stings. As the wind swept away the pungency of smoke that in his nose and lungs, he strained his eyes through the lingering haze. But with his back pressed against the ruins of the municipal hall, a debris-strewn corner hid the towering church steeple from his view. And if you want to read on, you need to read it for yourself. I'm sorry that I can't. I mean, in my mind, I can read that perfectly, but I'm not used to read that in English.
Well, thank you so much, Tina. Thank you for connecting with me over on X. And there's a writing community there, and it's just so awesome to have connected with you. And I am currently reading your book. And for those who are listening or who are watching this podcast, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, go ahead and check out Tina Hagmann's book. And the name of the book again is
When Atlantis Calls. This is my book, baby.
All right.
And yeah, it's available on Amazon and Kindle. So
okay, well, thank you so much, Tina. And to those listening,
yeah, it'd be great if
go get her book.
Can download it and read it. Oh, okay. Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for hosting me and for your interesting questions. That was really so much fun.